Be recording. All right, we're on the record. So welcome all to the September 2022 Golden Packet Knowledge Share. A really informal session tonight. We've got a really interesting presenter. I'm just going to kind of jump right into it. So for those that were part of the postmortem call back in August, one of the topics that had come up was potentially moving the Golden Packet. So we've been typically using the or third Saturday of July, but given the hot and stickiness, most of the eastern seaboard and the bugs and the rain and all that good stuff, we started socializing the option of moving the event. So talk about that in a moment. And Steve with K2GOG was originally supposed to present tonight, but unfortunately had a work conflict and was unable to. So he was kind enough to get Jon, KC2BNW, to present for us in his stead. And so, and I think Steve will be joining us next month to present. So this is two times he wasn't able to make it, so 3 strikes he's out. We'll see, and then we'll just see if there's any questions or comments or anything, and then we'll just close out the meeting. So September 23rd, 2023, that'll be the 3rd Saturday in September. I think we decided October and November, by that time it would be too cold, and moving it earlier in the year, springtime, chances are rain is going to be or chances for rain are a lot more prevalent. So I went ahead and just ran some quick numbers, and I don't know, it's anywhere from 8 to I don't know, 8 to 10 degree on average, lower temperatures, and for the most part less precip for month of September versus July. I think 8 to 10 degrees is significant enough that it makes sense to try and do it a little bit later. So I don't know what y'all think of that, but September 23rd seems like a good time to shoot for.
I think it's going to be cold for Tim.
Well, the way I see it is we've been sweating our butts off for him for years. So put on a jacket.
That's fair. Besides, he's going to be moving a lot more than the rest of us.
I'm actually going to go. I think my plan as of right now is to actually go up and join him. So.
Wow, that'd be a blast.
Yeah. So So as of right now, my plan is to go up to Katahdin for 2023. So I'll be up there suffering with him. So when he wants to cuss me for choosing September, well, he can do it face to face. Anyone have any questions, comments? Everybody okay with it?
Yeah, we've generally been pretty lucky with weather over the years, but you do run the risk that time that you could, have a snowstorm or something. Like on the top of Mount Washington, you can get some nasty weather up there.
Sure. Yeah, understood.
But I think it's still safe. You can get nasty weather in July too.
Yep. Anyone else?
Comment?
Please.
Yeah, I second that. Mount Washington. I was up near Mount Lafayette in July. I think it was July 2nd for a bachelor party, and it was like 80 degrees down below and humid. At the top, it was probably, with the wind chill, about 32 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour gust. And it was about maybe 25 degrees. So luckily it wasn't cloudy and precipitating up there, because it probably would have been a little bit flurries on the top. So it can get pretty brisk even in the summer. weather-wise.
Yeah, when I collected these averages, I mean, obviously they're averages, so, I mean, depending on what time of year you were there and, I mean, what year it was, right? They're gonna vary, but these were actually for the top of Mount Washington, so I made sure that I checked, as close to where we're actually operating from as possible.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm looking at the graphs. Very, very well done.
So, I mean, statistically, if we're doing it in the middle of the day between noon and 3 PM or 11 and 3, you know, we're not looking at this 43 number, we're looking closer to 70. And granted, I know it can get colder, but, John, you sit in your car the whole time, right?
Yeah, except for like setting up antennas and stuff. But no,
Sure.
you're the one on Katahdin because you're gonna get up early morning to hike up. So you're not hiking up at noon. If you're getting up at 5 AM, you'll get the cold temperatures. So
Oh, yeah, yeah, me and my southern thin blood, I'll be dying. And then, set for Golden Packet 2024, it'll be July.
try anything once, right?
All right, well, I mean, unless any objections, I'm gonna post the September 23rd.
It's already in my calendar.
Kick it.
Beautiful. All right, let's jump right into it. So, as mentioned, Jon Gong, KC2BNW, has joined us tonight for a nice informal presentation on portable ops, and I'm just gonna turn it right over to John.
Okay. Hi, guys. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm just going to jump right into it. And if you want to ask any questions afterwards, feel free. So I do a lot of camping and hiking when I can. I've been doing it for a couple of years now. And one of my hobbies, along with ham radio, as you can see, is building a bunch of like kit bags and stuff for different situations, we'll call it. And so I try to do a lot of hilltopping when I camp with my brother, and we have a lot of fun with it. And this is kind of like the result of the experiences that I've had up on the hills. For reference, I'm in the southeastern portion of New York, in what we call the Hudson Valley region, and we're about maybe 40 or 50 miles north of the city. And we have all 4 seasons, so we have to kind of prep and prepare for different seasons of the year. So here's a bunch of gear that I have. I guess I'll start out with some of the radios that I use and that I carry normally. So hopefully you guys can see everything. Yeah, it's okay. I can frame and all that.
Yeah, great, great video.
Okay, looks great.
All right. So sorry, it's kind of blinding you guys with the light here, but this is my main everyday carry radio. I always have this on me when I'm at work or just around town or whatever. I'm kind of a nerd like that. This is the Yaesu VX7R. It's a quad band radio. I'm not going to go into all the details of it, but I typically put like SMA to BNC adapters in my radio here. And the dual band antenna I have from an old Yaesu FT470 radio. So works pretty well on 70 centimeters and 2 meters. I do have other external antennas that I connect to this. And the reason why I like BNC connections is that they're quick and they're not as they're more rugged than an SMA connector, which is what these radios come with. There is a small loss, of course, but I'm willing to take that chance operating QRP. This is waterproof and submersible. That's the other reason why I like this radio. I've used this on trail building and out in the mud and just all kinds of conditions, and it's held up throughout the years. I own 4 of these radios now because I love them so much, but you try to get them now, they're kind of expensive. But tangent aside, definitely a great radio to have. Cons of it is that the membrane over the microphone on this kind of makes your audio really bad over the air. So you have to really get up on it and chew on it. And the speaker is not the highest quality, again, because of the waterproof membrane. But aside from that, it is a really good radio, and I would definitely recommend it. So that's something that I carry all the time on me, in addition to these other radios that I might bring up depending on the situation. So what I'm showing you here may not work in certain situations and may work in others. So the caveat there is what works for me may not work for you. And I'll say that a couple times throughout the video just to reiterate. But moving along, we also have a monoband 2-meter radio. This is the Yaesu VX170. There's newer radios out there that are a little bit more better suited, but I like this one because, again, like the VX7R, it's submersible and waterproof, and I sometimes catch myself out in the elements when it's raining and I want my equipment to survive. On it, we have an old MFJ antenna. I think this is a 1717S, and it's a dual band antenna on a monoband radio. It's what I had at the time, so I'm still using it. Works pretty well. Very rugged radio. Dare I say more rugged than the VX7R actually, but I'm a big 146520 guy, so I'm always up on the hilltops, blabbing about on 5.2, and then finding a clear frequency from there. So again, very rugged radio, monoband radio. Does have weather reception as well, like the VX7R, so I can find out what the weather is going to be while I'm up on the hilltop. The front end rejection on this is decent. It's not the best. I do have a bunch of other radios that I use for like POTA or contesting. I do operate as a special event station sometimes throughout the year, especially in July for the 13 Colonies event and the world's largest teapot. I'll use a different radio pending weather conditions. Moving along, in my kit, these two bags are pretty much similar in their purpose. This is a small EDC bag that I have, and in it has a whole bunch of different tools. We have lighting elements here, writing device for logging stuff with paper logs, a cutting tool, multi-tool, and a fixed blade knife, which comes in handy for making tools out on the trail. And obviously we have a bunch of paracord, which I do use. I'm going to deploy this out so you can see what I have in here and get an idea of what I carry. So there's a secondary cutting tool with a slightly different purpose, red LED inside. It's a small Swiss tool with a scissor. And we have a bunch of headlamps, another light here. So I usually have about 3 lights in case I have to lend one to my brother or something fails. I always have 2 backups. I have a small compass, which is it's okay for basic direction finding, but I do carry another navigational compass, which we'll go over later. We do have, emergency items. So if I'm going to be on the trail, I'm going to have stuff that can enable me to prolong my duration on the trail, depending on the environment. So if it's winter, I might bring a different kit like this, but it's always going to be a core kit having like lighting elements, signaling devices, reflecting mirrors, lighters, water filters, sewing kits, and other charging cables and whatnot. Behind here, there's like 2 slots inside this bag, which I house a Yaesu VX1R micro HT. Believe it or not, it fits in this thing along with a small AA charging solar panel, which can power the radio by itself via USB plug. It outputs USB power. And it also has another small pill light, which will be pretty useful in case all these other lights don't work. And it's in this silver bag here. I don't know if you guys can kind of see that, but this silver bag is an EMP resistant bag. I think it's rated for like -85 dB or so. So it's decent for probably a CME or EMP. I don't know. I mean, I've never been in one, so it's hard to say, right? But it does bring peace of mind. So I typically keep my mission critical gear in that electronic wise. And if I need it, I pull it out and I can use it as a backup. So this is, you could classify this as sort of like a small ham radio bag if you want. I don't really classify that as that, but it's what I have with me. In the front pouch here, we got like a little slip pouch, which houses a small little ouchie boo boo medical kit. It's not like your typical, I'm going to have a, let's say like a tourniquet or a ETD bandage in it. It's just a basic, bandage your little scrape up kind of medical kit. In addition to that, I have hand sanitizer, and I also have toilet paper too, because that does come in handy when you're out on the trails, guys, especially if there's no leaves on the trees. And believe me, it's saved other people on the trail in my experience. So that's basically what I call a core kit, which is a modular system that I use for hiking and camping. Now, this is very heavy in my opinion. So if I'm going to do like a longer duration hike, let's say I'm doing a multiple day hike on the AT, I'm going to jettison all this gear because it's all heavy stuff. I'm going to bring like a lighter load, different load out. But typically for a day hike, this is fine, even though it's a lot of weight. I can jettison my backpack if I have to ditch it and just have this on my persons. So it's not like, you know, I lose everything in one basket. I can take this, put it in a bigger backpack, smaller backpack, et cetera, et cetera. So here's another iteration. I'm trying to keep this fast because it's pretty much the same thing as the other smaller bag that I've shown. Once again, this is a slightly bigger bag, and these are VanQuest bags. Okay, the other one that I showed you, the small one, that's a VanQuest FTIM 5x7, and this is a FTIM 9x6. So it's slightly bigger, as you can see. On the outside, again, I have like a lighting tool. This is a light on the pen here. It's rechargeable, waterproof. And I have a writing device so I can log in my book. And I have a cutting tool on this side here, so for easy access. And then once again, in this flip pouch, I have the same stuff, medical kit, told you, whatever. And then inside, I'll just open this up real quick just to show you. And we'll move on to the other bags that I have. So this one is a little bit more loaded out. We have a bigger EDC knife. This is like a full Leatherman plier based knife, so you can do a little bit more troubleshooting out in the trail. Once again, all the same materials inside of here. EMP bag, another Yaesu VX1R micro HT inside here, same thing. Pretty straightforward, just a little bit bigger, a little bit easier access too, but a little bit heavier. But this is my main favorite one to carry because I have a strap on here. I could just put this on my shoulder. It's on my outside persons. It's not attached or inside the bag. So if I need something, I swing it around, open it up like this, and I grab what I want. And timing could be critical when you're out there in the trails. You know, you don't want to be fumbling about in your bag looking for something. So that kind of speeds up the process at the expense of weight and bulkiness. So it's a trade-off. Moving along, and feel free to stop me, guys, if you have any questions along the way or if you find any issues. Let's go ahead. I'm going to try to move around here so you guys can see a little bit easier. This is my Parks in the Air bag, and it's quite big. This is a Max Edition Neat Freak. They call it the Neat Freak case, and it houses my Elecraft KX2, which I use for single sideband and phone. I also do a little bit of digital stuff, FT8, FT4 sometimes, if I have the right equipment, but I don't have a portable setup for that right now at the moment. And on the side is a module which houses my NFED half-wave system. This is a homebrew system that I built with the help of my brother, and has a bunch of charging cables in it. The NFED half-wave 49-to-1 auto transformer. The windings look a little loose on the center, but it does work. I've talked to from position in my park where I live in New York. The AT trail goes through Wanstock State Park, and I'm up about 1,300 feet. I can do phone contacts from there with this out on 20 meters to about, like, say, Portland, Oregon, all the way up in that corner. For some reason, I always get a good reception and transmission that way when the band conditions open. But I've used this on Sam's Point as well, which is one of the locations that was listed on the slide there. Little interesting thing to know about Sam's Point is that now you require a permission from the park manager to operate at the summit. So it wasn't like that before, but I think they got a new park manager. Typically, when I go to Sam's Point, I just do VHF, UHF operations, mainly VHF operations. But moving along.
Any idea what the concern is that they want to know that?
Oh, yeah. I think what their concern is, I'm not sure if their knowledge is accurate. They feel that the setups that some guys do there for SOTA, it's a SOTA activation point. They feel that all the cabling and all the guiding of the mast and antenna interfere with the public's recreational enjoyment of the point. I guess I can see that as a valid point. I think that's their main concern is the cabling and routing of the support for the beam elements that people use. I don't have a beam element myself, but that's what I'm assuming is what their concern is, because I've heard from some of the park guys, like some guys go there with elaborate setups, like, and that's cool, you know, but I guess they're afraid people might trip on it or something. It's all guessing work right now. I don't know the exact reason, so I can't.
Fine.
Yeah. Moving along in the bag in the front part, I have a zipper pouch which houses all my connectors and wing nut system, which works with my linked end-fed half-wave dipole system. I do carry a backup banana pole option. So you guys, I'm sure you guys know what a BNC banana pole is by now. I just attached two spade connectors on this end, and I have a dipole instantly with my elements instead of using the end-fed half-wave system. If I can get away with it, I'll do that. If not, I'll try the end-fed half-wave system. That's my own two methods of utilizing HF in the field. I don't know if you guys can see this on the camera, but there are 4 elements here. This equals up to 40 meters on a single sideband. It's cut for the foam portion. I can use 2 of these elements, link up for 20 meters. And with the end-fed half-wave system, I can actually operate on 10 meters as well, without having to do any ATU tuning or manual tuning. And then I have some pens and pencils in here too on the side for logging, in case I want to log with my logbook. Let's open up the bag real quick. I'm trying to keep this brief for you guys because I know you got other things to do. So I'll try to get to it quick. So in here, I don't know if you guys can see that. Again, I have another EMP type bag where I house the Elecraft KX2 inside. I've got small little logbook, field logbook. I got another bigger one in the bag too, because I write kind of big and sloppy. I have a small, this is a PowerFilm F15300. This is a 5 watt, 0.3 amp at 15.4 volt solar panel. When it's on the load, it's less than 15.4 volts, but it's enough to charge my Energizer battery here. And I have the cables that go inside of it. So I can route power to this battery unit. From this battery unit, I can route it into the Elecraft KX2. So I can be out in the sun for an extended duration of operations in the field. And one thing I don't have with this kit right now that I usually carry along with the kit is a USB fan. Somebody asked me, well, why do I carry a USB fan out in the, why lug up a small USB fan? And the reason is, if you're doing extended operations, like the KX2, for example, has a recorder function where you can record yourself calling out CQ. If you keep doing that for long periods of time, it will overheat the radio. And I found that in July, June, August, September, and even May sometimes, the unit tends to heat up because it's humid and it's hot. And I want to make sure the unit stays within about like 42 to 47 degrees Celsius on the temperature sensor. So that's why I carry a USB fan to prolong the extended operation. Even says in the manual with some of these Elecraft machines that you can't run them for long periods because of that issue. So to kind of counteract that, I use that with the kit. And I don't have it here to show you, but it's a small USB fan. You can probably find one in Kmart or something. I'm not going to open the whole bag. It's just, you can kind of see it. It's in here. I have the microphone in there too. So once again, I'm a little bit compulsive about having some sort of protection for my main radio gear, HF gear, and it costs a lot of money too. So got to protect it, right? There's other stuff behind here. There's like a bigger pad for riding. This is a nice EDC bag for like just general use if you want to convert it over to a general use bag. But I use it for a bag for the Elecraft KX2. Now there are better bags out there to use for this kind of gear because it's more lighter weight, less bulky. So my reason behind having all this in the field, especially if I'm out in the trails, I like to have a unit on the outside to hold on to, not necessarily in a backpack, which we'll get over to in a minute. So I can quick access to this and use it. Now, if I'm doing like a long duration hike, couple, day or two, I might take this out and put it in a smaller kit, which reduces the weight and bulkiness because, ounces, equal pounds and pounds equal pain, right? So you want to try to keep it as light as you can, if you can. So again, it's situational determined. So what works for me in certain cases may not work in other cases. So just keep that in mind. And what's nice about the Max Edition Neat Freak bag is that it comes with a really comfortable strap. That's another important thing when it comes to using this gear. You want to be comfortable when you use it. So I'm able to sling this on my side or keeping my front without it getting too bulky, so I can navigate like certain rock scrambles that I might encounter on the trail. The bag is rugged. It's made of pretty rugged material that's treated with DWR, durable water repellency, so it can withstand the rain. And as you notice, the zippers here, I don't know if you guys can see that, the zippers are inverted, so that aids in keeping a lot of dirt and water resistancy, keeping water out. So that's a good feature to have on outdoor gear. It's not fully waterproof, obviously, but then again, you know, I'm not diving with my HF gear. So that would be like my little POTA kit, if you can call it little. It's just a self-contained unit. A lot of my stuff is, I try to isolate it in self-contained units. So if my main bag I have to get rid of or breaks or whatever, I just pull whatever I need out or out of the system and then reinsert it in another system. So it's a modular system at the cost of weight and bulkiness. Next up, we have a Maxpedition Proteus Versa Pack here, and attached to it in the front is also that same bag that I showed in the beginning, the small guy. Let's see, the BagQuest FTIM 5x7. I managed to fit it on the front MOLLE system on the back. This is a work in progress. It's an idea I had. I was talking about before the VX170. That's my monoband 2-meter radio that I like to use when the weather is bad. If the weather is going to be good, I'm going to go with maybe a Kenwood, and this is the TH22AT. So this has a little bit better front ending and a little bit more sensitivity than the VX170, and it's got better audio, obviously, because the mic on this unit is not covered with a membrane. So I'll use this. Attached to it is a old 5/8 wave, I think, Larson antenna. So it's a rubber duck. This antenna works pretty well on the trails, from what I've noticed. If I don't want to carry this, and I feel like carrying a heavy item, I have a Radio Shack HTX 202, which is one of my all-time favorite radios for working on the hill. Again, great front end as well. Almost no intermod when you're on the hill. That's really important to have, in my opinion, when you're up there, because you will get like weird stuff on the frequency you're trying to transmit. So some of these other radios are very susceptible to that. I noticed the Kenwood isn't as much, which is kind of nice. So that's what I have on here. I'm kind of rerouting where this is going to hang up on the bag. So let's go ahead and take this off and look at the front real quick. On the front, I do have a general purpose Yaesu VX3R micro HT. I'm a big fan of micro HTs for several reasons. One is their size and portability, and two, their reception, wideband reception. Sometimes what I like to do is listen more than transmit, so I can locate and find open frequencies or just information in general. And this is one of my favorite little HTs. My biggest favorite one, obviously, is the VX1R. But I have a bunch of different batteries in this kit. This is more like a everyday, not every day. It's more like a, if I have a special event at a ham radio, like a relay to, you know, work at. Many of you guys have done stuff like that, running, you know, races and stuff like that. I'll bring this bag, and the idea is I'll have a bunch of different radios I can swap out and in and out with. I do carry with me, I forgot to mention this before, I have a limited amount of gear to show you. I do carry a Yaesu FT1DR or a XD, which is a better GPS version of the 1DR for the APRS system. So I do use APRS on the field, in the field. It's one of the best things to use in case I have to tell somebody where I am. I just tell them, look up my call sign, -7, so they can find that easily. So I have this on the outside of the kit for easy access, and I can run this radio for many hours on receive, and I can listen to what's going on. And if I got to transmit at a higher power, I just use this. In the front here, this can detach off the main pack here, and it's its own little ham radio bag with the VX3R. Once again, this gives you a better idea of what I carry. I carry charging cables, extra batteries. I've got a lithium-ion battery, and I've got a smaller battery charger for the cells on the VX3R. I have about 2 or 3 batteries for the VX3R in case my main units die here. I still have something to use, and I can break this little bag off the main kit, and I can just carry that with me if I want to go really lightweight. And as you can see, I've got a bunch of other supporting elements in here, mainly charging cables. I am working at getting a Slim Jim type of antenna in there, just a little J-pole one. So like I said, it's a work in progress. So we're still getting
Ed Fong's Slim Jim is fantastic.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was looking at that. I was wondering, your experiences are pretty good with the Ed Fong because I was looking at
Yeah,
grabbing
yeah,
that.
it's really nice. I also have a, oh gosh, the guy who sells on eBay,
Was it
or,
N9TAX, I think, right?
yeah, the N9TX, but I
Yeah.
like the Ed Fong better.
Yeah, I was looking at the Ed Fong because I want to stick it in that little module there, but
You
it's
know,
just
it's a
something
lot
nice
of,
to
a
have.
lot of Maxpedition. It seems like a lot of folks carry that stuff.
Yeah, I like Maxpedition and VanQuest. I'm more biased towards VanQuest because I have more gear of theirs, but I have been using Maxpedition for like 7 or 8 years now, and that stuff just holds up over time, no matter what you do to it. It's been amazing gear. I can't recommend either company. I mean, it is very pricey at this point, but you get what you pay for. So I come from the philosophy of you buy once, you cry once. Of course, I can afford to say that, right? But you choose the best that you can do. So just because it has a name brand on it doesn't mean you have to get it necessarily. But it's just something that I choose for myself is buy once, cry once. That's how I feel about it for my own personal use. So I do recommend Maxpedition. I'm not trying to make this a brand, thing. You can use any other gear if you want, perfectly fine. I'm gonna just move real quick. I have more battery units in here for my other stuff. I have a Alinco DJ 580T, I think, it's 580. It's in here. I use that for extra batteries for the Kenwood. I have a secondary Kenwood in here, and I also have another antenna. This is a AEA hot rod antenna, 2 meter hot rod. My favorite antenna. I bring this probably now about 90% of the time I'm up on the hills. The reason why I bring it is that it's a 5/8 wave foil loaded antenna. And if you have it shrunk down, you can use it as a quarter wave antenna too as well. This thing gets me up so far that I have chosen to bring this over a 3-element Yagi most cases. Not to say that it's better than 3-element Yagi, it just fits my needs for the situation. So the
Have
takeoff
you ever?
angle.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say the takeoff angle is fantastic for what I'm using it for, but it's not ideal in every condition. So just a caveat with that. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was just say, so as far as batteries go, I know like for the Kenwood HTs, I've been eyeing, they make a battery, well, it's an enclosure that you can use alkaline batteries in.
Yes, absolutely. This is actually the battery that uses it. This is a 6-cell one. It's Chinese made, so it's not greatest quality, but it does integrate with the Kenwood, like you're saying. So it does take alkaline, or in this case, I have nickel metal hydride, which the manuals say don't really use, but because there's no protection circuitry in it. But I've never had an issue, frankly. Using nickel metal hydride doesn't mean stuff can't happen, but
Sure.
plan accordingly, I guess is
Yeah, no,
the
I think it's nice to have that option to
yeah.
switch to alkaline if needed.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree 100%. In fact, I don't have it here again. The HTX202, which I have, has a 10-cell AA battery holder, so I can get a true 14 something volts out of it, 13 volts, and a true 5 watts out on that thing. And let me tell you, guys think I'm on a base station when I'm on top of the hill. Like, whoa, what are you using? I'm like, I'm using an old HTX202, and they flip out over that. It's kind of funny. So sorry, I'm kind of just rambling on here. Okay, so I
Oh,
have
this is great. Keep going. Yeah.
I have the Elenco DJ 580, and I've configured this one into a small crossband repeater. This is not so much prepping gear on hiking on trails, but just as a regular radio bag idea. Sometimes at events we need a crossband repeater. This unit is made back, I think, in the late 80s or early 90s. I think the early 90s. And it has, the coin cell memory battery in there. You guys know all about that stuff. Replacing that can get kind of annoying with the volatile memory. But the trade-off is with this is that it works very, very well as a simplex crossband repeater in a portable format. And once again, I have an alkaline 6 AA battery pack on the back of it. So, there you go. Works fairly well. I placed this on top of a hill somewhere securely, and ready to rock and roll. So that's what I have for this kit. And something that's not really related, well, it's related to ham radio. It's more my receiver end of it, because I like to listen to stuff. I have a C Crane Skywave single sideband receiver, general purpose all band receiver for short wave, low band, even weather and and air, but I already have radios that do that. So I carry that for listening in case I need to gather information, and I keep it in a small portable kit. I keep it in the bag here. So that is like the radio bag. I know we have a whole crap load of stuff on the floor here, so I'm gonna try to clear up a lot of this stuff. I'm almost finished too, so let's go ahead and do this to the side. So here's an example of what I carry for EDC, or I could carry on the trail too if I'm doing a really short duration hike, like maybe an hour or 2 hours even. I carry a small sling bag, which is pretty nice to have because it's, you know, you can sling it to your front, access what you need, sling it back. And again, I have another bag within a bag, right? You ever seen those like videos of those round egg-shaped Russian dolls? You open it and there's a little one in there, open it, it's another one in there. It's kind of like that with the bags, right? So there's another VanQuest bag, again, another EDC bag that I like to build, and it also has a VX1R inside of it. Most of my kits will have a VX1R inside of it. So once again, all the basic daily things that I run into and use for EDC use. It's packed to the brim, but it works very well. But it's a little bit smaller than the other two bags that I've shown, and works really well as a example of how I would carry one of those core bags. Is what I like to call them, core bag, meaning it's not necessarily a medical bag or a radio bag. It's a, you know, a combination of all three pretty much. So I put that in my bag, and or I could put it into a hiking bag, which I'll show you in a moment here. So this is one of the bags that I like using. This particular bag here, I don't know if you guys can kind of see the whole thing. I'll flatten it out. This is only for short duration trips because it's super heavy, super bulky. I wouldn't recommend it for like a multi-day Appalachian Trail trek, but this bag is the Marine ILBE Gen 2 rucksack, basically, or not really rucksack, it's a backpack, really. It's based off the Arc'teryx Bore 90 pack design, so it's based off of civilian model design, except for made from
German,
Marine.
it's a rucksack.
Okay, yeah, so rucksack, there you go. Thank you, sir. If if I'm using a terminology wrong, just feel free to stop me and say, hey, that's what that is. So rucksack. So this is a nice bag, heavy but rugged, especially if you have to bushwhack. Going through mountain laurel, blueberry bushes. It's not fun when you have that lightweight Osprey gear stuff, because that stuff will get torn up. This stuff will last fairly well because the denier is very, very thick, and at the expense of weight and comfort, right? So once again, I can put like my units, my EDC units in the main pouch, my radio bag in there if I wanted to, another, camping type gear inside for the duration. So this is a very big bag. It's a very extreme example, but I carry small bags too. But just want to give you an idea, like, okay, you can, pop all the stuff in there and run with it. That's how my system works. And I can mount a separate medical bag on the outside or on my persons. Typically, what I don't have shown right now here is a smaller medical bag. It's like maybe about like a 6x8 bag. It has a cat tourniquet in there, latest generation, ETD, bandage, gauze, things like that for more like bleed control and whatnot. So in addition to augment my main core bags, which we've seen, I'll use a specific purposed medical bag for that. So one thing I will have to say, being out in the trails, having a sitting pad is really valuable, because when your butt's on the rock and it's cold out, like say in the colder months, you're gonna lose a lot of heat, and that's not very comfortable when you're operating. In my experience anyway. You can bring a chair, you can bring a hammock. Sometimes I use a hammock. I'm lazy, I operate out of a hammock, believe it or not. I think there was a joke a few years back on the internet, hammocks on the air. I know, kind of fun. So I know, something to consider. But yeah, so that's the system that I use to carry my stuff with. And I think that's about it. I've gone through a lot of stuff. I know it's a lot of information at once, and well, I could go more into it, but I want to keep it kind of short for you guys. So I guess I'm finished there. That'd be it.
John, this
Well,
is great.
That was amazing. You make me feel completely ill prepared for what I take with me when
Yeah,
I
me
go
too.
hiking. I'm like, whoa.
Well, don't feel ill prepared, because this is what works for me, right? What works for you is completely different. You know what I mean? Like, just because I have all this fun, fancy stuff, that doesn't mean you're not prepared. It's just,
Yeah.
you know,
And to
I take it.
place it, I'm in Florida, so I'm not clambering over rocks. I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm walking flat. I mean, the tough fabric, it would be really good for plowing through palmettos, but
Yeah.
about the worst I ever encounter.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, you got the gators to worry about too, you know, and the big giant mosquitoes and the python snakes and the
Well,
humidity.
if I go down south, yeah, gators will run away from you unless it's mating season.
Oh boy.
And there you just learn not to go there.
Oh yeah.
But ordinarily they turn and run as soon as they catch noise of you.
Well, that's I got my best buddy lives down in Florida. He used to live by Lehigh Acres, but I don't know where he is now. I think he's on the other side of the coast, over
Yeah.
there on the east. Was it East Coast? East Coast, yeah.
Lehigh Acres would be West Coast. I'm on the East Coast of Florida.
Yeah, he moved to the East Coast, so you know he's like, all right, I'm getting out of here. So
Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions about the gear, like, you know, want me to go over something, show you, like, okay, why do I have that set up like that, or you know, feel free.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
This is John, WA1KLI, and I have a Yaesu radio. I happen to have the VX8, and I have the
Oh.
speaker mic with it, and it's very similar to yours, submersible and all that. I noticed you're not using a speaker mic, so I was wondering what you thought of those, since you mentioned on the submersibles, the mic filter kind of messes up the audio. And the second question I have for you about your HT is when you're hiking, not when you're actually on the summit, but when you're hiking, where do you carry it? You have a pouch? Do you put it up on your shoulder? You put it in your back pocket? Where do you put it?
So that's a great question. First, the ATR is an excellent radio. It's one of my favorite radios. Actually, I have one with the mic and the GPS module and that little stand module that fits the big, huge GPS on top of it. Great radio. I love it. That's a great radio for most of my uses, EDC, and even on the summit too, because it does 6 meters, it does 1.25 meters, does 2 meters, and does 70 centimeters. It's a great quad band radio. So the reason why I don't use too many microphones is because I usually mount my radios on my straps, usually, as long as it doesn't interfere with my compass devices, because you know compasses are really sensitive to magnetic fields and metals. So I typically don't mount too much stuff, but a radio I will, because I can take it off. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the BX7R or the BX170 line. They have these. Some people hate these clips, but I find them generally useful. They are fragile. In my experience, I have broken a number of these, and I have had to buy a number of these. So, but what I'll do is the sternum strap. Usually, I'll either mount it here on the sternum strap of the backpack, or I will mount it here as well. And it tends to work pretty well. If I need to talk with it, I'll just unclip it. And that's not for every radio, but that's for the BX line of radios that I use. The Yaesu FT1DR, which I don't have, which has a similar backpack as the VX8DR that you're familiar with, that is a little bit more tricky. So in that case, I'll typically be running 144.390 APRS beaconing with that. I'll just keep it as a separate digital, packet radio, just to send packets out every so often. I won't really use that for talking, but if I did, I would probably mount it on the sternum strap too. Or in your case, the 8DR, which is a fantastic radio again, I would actually take the microphone and the GPS unit with me. It's more weight, it's more bulky, and it's more components to go wrong, but it's more convenient for ease of time. A lot of my stuff I try to do to save on time, because I found that operating as like Kilo 2 Alpha, one of the 13 colony stations, you want to get up there, you want to be all set and ready to go by time that event starts. So I don't want to waste any time, because people are looking for you, and you want to get on time, on target real quick, and you want to be able to break down real quick, keep booming real quick. So a lot of times the trade-off with that is you have to carry excess weight sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes, and you have to be uncomfortable sometimes. So reason why I don't carry a mic It's just more efficient to carry this, and I'll usually have a radio in my hand when I'm hiking if I don't have hiking poles in my hand. I have to use hiking poles sometimes because my knees are not as good going downhill. And you know, you want to have hands free for rock scrambling. So I typically mount on the stern strap, which alleviates that. Number two, I think you were what was number two again? I'm sorry. Kind of got
Well,
lost
I was
there.
asking if you use some kind of radio patches on. In other words, I happen to have an FT1D as well. But if you're
Yep.
using it for APRS, you need that antenna up as it's beaconing while you're hiking. You also
Yes.
mentioned you took it to work and with you. I assume that when you're like going to the shopping center, you're not taking that rucksack.
No, definitely. I typically carry it based on its little clip on my waistband. I wear shorts usually. I don't usually wear belts, but if I do, it'll be going on the belt. I do have some radio pouches that I would put it in for hiking because I don't, you know, I've damaged the outside of it. I've actually used the VX7R and the FT1D while trail building. I used to do trail building for AmeriCorps, and they both were in the mud and in the elements. But I kept the FT1D in a pouch too, so I would recommend a pouch. Just for your information, I would carry it in a pouch. The VX7R, not so much. As you can see, this one's really beat to hell and back. I throw this thing into like walls and rocks, and I don't recommend that, but it has survived. I have sent it in for one time for the ceramic filter replacement, but now that I know how to do that, I might just do it myself. But one thing to note with the VX7R, these knobs will come off if you do, you know, yank on them or hit them hard enough, they will break. That's one of the weaker spots of the VX7R. In addition to being the rubber seals here, they wear out over time. But I bought a whole bunch of them from Yaesu to kind of mitigate that exposure. So yeah, if you had a
When you
microphone,
say pouch, you mean a radio specific pouch or just a pouch?
sometimes it's a radio specific pouch, sometimes, but other times if it's like the right size. Let me find this example here. So I have a radio pouch here. This is for an old cell phone, right?
Right.
I'll just use something like that. So it's a cell phone pouch. So technically it is a radio pouch. Cell phone's a radio, right? If you want to be
Right.
specific about it. But yeah, it's in a pouch and it's on the side here. The Molly, I don't know if you can see the Molly
Yep.
strap here. Yeah, it's clipped right onto that. The helmet that I got off eBay a while back, I got this for $20. Good deal, right? Just had to finagle with it for a little bit, but came with its own pouch here. It's not, I don't think it's the correct pouch for the radio, but again, it's a radio specific pouch. It has a little webbing back here, which I can mount to my system. Yeah, if there's a pouch, and if I can use it, I will.
So you
Generally,
just put that pouch on your belt, or maybe if you have something small like a camelback you were taking for the day, you just stick it on the strap that comes over your shoulder.
yes, exactly. Yeah, I would stick it on a strap. So one example, when I'm at work, I work for the parks, and we have these Motorola's, and lately we've been using MERS frequencies too. So I'll strap it onto one of the straps on the front end pouch here. So you can kind of see if I was carrying this, but I have my easy access tool and I have my radio here. Now the challenge is not getting your face poked or your eye poked with the antenna, right?
Right.
So that's always the you know, the armpit scratchers, right? So that's why I try to keep a relatively usable size antenna for EDC carry. If I'm going to be specific, you know, going out in the field, I'll carry much bigger antennas, more effective antennas to use. Especially this one. I love this antenna. It's a great rubber duck antenna for monoband operations. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Could I make a point about the VX8DR?
Yes.
I've had one of those for about more than 10 years. And I bought the GPS receiver and put it on the top of the speaker mic because I like to put the radio on my belt. I like to have the speaker mic up in the air, like on my shoulder or somewhere. I'm not, well, the speaker mic with a GPS receiver. I'm also afraid about putting a big kludge on the top of the radio because if you drop it, you break the top off the radio and you're toast. This way it's all separate. And if the microphone falls on the ground, as it has quite a few times, it'll, you know, the microphone will bounce. And even if you have to get another receiver, I've got a couple of FT1DRs and FT3DR. And the FT1s are my go-to. I loan them to guys that are working on trail events and so on, first and last bike on a race, because they're simple to operate and they're pretty much foolproof. But I like my VX8DR for that purpose sometimes. It's been working well.
Here's what one looks like with the speaker mic. I don't know if you can see that.
I can't see I cannot see the top of the speaker mic, but is your GPS receiver on the speaker mic?
Yes, it's on the speaker mic.
Okay, hold it down a little bit. We can see what's on the mic. A little more, a little more. Okay, yeah, that's the way mine is set up too. I think that's the way to go. I just wanted to make that a recommendation.
Thank you.
Yeah, mine's set up the same way as you have your microphone too. I keep the GPS receiver on top. I do have that mounting that goes on the radio itself. I find that's not as practical to carry. It's better to carry the mic with the GPS receiver on it. And like you said, you drop that radio on the wrong way, you could break that SMA connector on the antenna. Just better to put the exposure to damage to the microphone itself and protect the radio itself. One thing to note with these radios, they're again, I'll show you an example. Once again, the VX7R, you can see how the numbers and the pads are all worn off. So you want to try to prevent that as much as you can with radios. This one I bought knowing that it would be sacrificed to the everyday use, but you want to try to preserve the numbers so you remember what they do. I also recommend learning how to front end program your radios in fields, because you will have to change them on the fly to add to that.
One good thing Yaesu has done for us, they use the same batteries and chargers for that whole series of radios, from the VX8DR to the FT5DR. So you don't have to wind up buying a whole bunch of batteries and chargers. So I got a pretty good stock of them. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I have the battery back that you can put alkaline batteries in. If you're out there at last resort, you can just put some regular batteries in.
Yeah.
I have a couple of battery eliminators. I can plug them into 13.8 volts and we're in business all day.
Yeah, I have battery eliminators. I've used the 3-cell AA battery, that is the FBA 39, right? I've used nickel hydride batteries in that, even though the voltage is a little bit lower than the alkaline batteries, still works fairly well in low power, like 500 milliwatts, even beaconing out for about roughly 8 hours with the N-loop batteries. So yeah, they're very versatile radios, and the battery packs are very, I'm glad they kept it streamlined for, like you said, from the FT1DR to, or even the HER, actually, the older predecessor to the FT1D. Yeah, up to the FT5DR. I like Yaesu a lot. I'm a Yaesu fanboy, I'll admit, but I use ICOM and other brands of radio, of course, too.
Yeah, the only problem with the Yaesus is they don't operate as self-contained digipeters, and you can't program the frequency, tone, and offset into your APRS beacon like you can with the Kenwood. So it's a trade-off.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely trade-offs. I prefer Kenwoods for certain things and Yaesus for other things, and then I'll prefer ICOMs for specific purpose things. And what's the other one? There's another. I think I'm missing another brand.
Anytones? Anytones?
Anytones. Yeah.
Alinco.
Alinco. That's the one I forgot. But Anytones, yes. Actually, I don't own any Anytones or any of that yet. I've heard good things about them, but well, I'm a fan of the older radios, as you guys can tell. I just like the front ends a little bit better, but yeah.
Do you make any of your other own pouches or canvas gear?
I don't sew any or make any of my own pouches. I have done repairs on certain ones. Let me grab the let me find it here. Where did I put it? Here it is. So on this one, it's not exactly the answer to your question, but you can see that sewing part right there. This was kind of coming apart after I was carrying it so much by the handle on my belt instead of by the loops here for convenience. So I do make minor repairs on the gear, but I don't sew my own canvas gear. I would like to do that, but skill and time, I've just not enough hours in the day for me to sew. But I would like to. Answer is no.
Wow, that was amazing.
Yeah, that was an excellent presentation, John. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks for bearing with me, guys, and my rambling.
No,
Not at all.
our pleasure, for sure.
Anybody else have any questions or comments for John or anything else for that matter?
Well, while we're talking about HCs and we've got Lynn here, maybe there's a simple answer to this. I was not up at Maryland Mountains this year because I was at Bob's memorial service. But a couple of years ago, I had the idea that I could take one of my Kenwood HDs, actually a THD7AG, and connect it to my computer running APRS IS32. And I wanted to try to figure out, and I wasn't able to do it. If I could receive on 144.330 and just transmit on 144.390 so I could relay packets to a local digipeater and get them into the network. I wasn't able to figure out how to do that. And I haven't worked on it since. But one of these days, Lynn, I'm going to talk to you about that. If there's any chance of doing that, or you think I'd be wasting my time.
Just program a split into your radio so that it, just like a repeater split, you just figure out what the split is between whatever the event frequency is and 390. And that way, when it transmits, it's going to go to the transmit offset.
Okay, that's what I thought. For some reason, I wasn't able to do that, but I've got to get back into the Linguini a little bit and poke around, and maybe I'll be able to work on that next year.
Yeah, the danger with that, though, just so you're aware, even though you're doing a split, you're still going to desense your trail radio when you're transmitting on 390, because you're still on 2 meters and you're not going to carry cans with you to really isolate the frequencies.
Yeah,
So,
well, I actually up at that site, I was using my TMD 710, and I was not desensing it with a 5 milliwatt signal or whatever from the 500 milliwatt signal from the HT. I was close enough. I had a good path to the local digipeater up there.
okay. Sometimes you can't tell you're desensing. It's just your D710 just doesn't hear the packet because it heard noise instead. But you can work with it. The split is the magic. It'd be better if you could come up with a crossband repeat, but then you're not going to be able to use the 390 infrastructure because there's no 440 infrastructure except out in the Pacific Northwest that I'm aware of.
Maybe I could get one of the digipeater operators to receive on 440.
That'd be nice.
It's not out of the question.
Right. Do you have internet where you on your site?
No,
Okay.
no, that would be too much to hope for, actually. Well, maybe I could figure out a way to do it, but yeah, I want to try to avoid the internet directly to an APRS site. I don't like to rely on the internet for anything if I can help it.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to allude to is if you have cellular data up there, you could just gate the trail packets directly to the IS and everything's taken care of. You don't even need to digipede it or put it back on the radio somewhere.
Yeah, I don't have that now. Actually, the site that I was at before was in a garage with a 120-foot tower, so I was cheating. And when it rained, I did not get wet. But yeah, we don't have that anymore because Dick came and sold his house up there, and he had a shack with an attached house. It was a beautiful place to operate, but I don't want to tell everybody about that because you're liable to go looking for it. It doesn't belong to him anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah. I love your organization in those packs, by the way.
Well, thank you. I just figured I'd show why you guys are talking this way.
Yeah, I'm all eyes for sure.
My wife wishes that I could be that organized.
I'm organized on a micro level, I guess you could say, but on a macro level, forget about it. I'm in trouble. So It's organized chaos. Yeah, just to reiterate, show you all the toys and stuff. I have a YouTube channel where I review camping and hiking gear and ham radio gear, believe it or not.
Oh, could you
And,
post that link in the chat?
Yeah, I'll try to do it on my cell phone here. So let me do
Do
that
that
right
or
now.
give it to Jeff and he can send it out to us afterwards. I'd
Sure,
love to
and-
check out your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I have a lot of these, and I have a lot of these bags up on there, like what I carry, some older configurations, and then I do update videos, just to show what I change over time. So yeah, I'll send it to Jeff and I'll post it in the chat. Let me get that done for you ASAP.
Sounds great.
And all of our eyes are on the chat, ready to poke the link.
Yes.
All right, well, I know that while John was presenting, Hank shared some statistics for Mount Washington. Hank, I did ask if you could share the link where you got those statistics from so that I can look up the other locations. Because I'd like to cross-reference what I looked up for the other ones. So if you would please be so kind as to share that, I would appreciate it. And John, I just made note of your YouTube channel. Thank you for sharing that link. I will share it with the group.
Yeah, I think you're getting a little closer to your 1,000 subscribers.
What's that?
The fossil channel, I say, I think you're getting a little closer to your 1,000 subscribers. You started with 887. I know you've picked up at least one.
2.
There you go.
Hello and welcome. Today we received.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. It's kind of boring sometimes, so just me talking about a bunch of gear that I like, being a nerd. But I like it. I enjoy it. It's fun. It's fun to show people what they could do, and then maybe I get a lot of feedback. People tell me, "Oh, you could do this," and then I do that, and I watch a bunch of other YouTube videos. Say, okay, let me try this idea, see how it works. So, it's good. I like to share the information because then you guys can make better, more improved kits for your needs. So that's always the fun thing to watch and see.
Let me ask you a couple of quick questions, John. I mean, building kits can almost become a hobby in and of itself, right? I see some of these channels and you see the guy's got 57 backpacks and this and that, he's filled his basement with it. But you said you work for the Park Service?
Yes, sir. Currently employed part-time for New York State Park Services. So part of that includes like maintenance of the park, trail stewarding, which is informational dissemination to the public, like hiking trails. We do mountain rescues for injured and lost hikers, and occasionally if there's a forest fire, which there actually was this past few weeks up at near Sam's Point, actually in Napanock. I was up there for about 2 days on the fire line, and not in the active fire zone, but like digging the fire line, down to the earth so nothing jumps past it. Yeah, I do stuff like that. So having ham radio, fun. Well, so
Obviously,
that's what I do.
You're going to take specialized gear depending on what you're doing. If you're doing a mountain rescue, you'll take different gear than if you're out fighting a fire,
Yes.
obviously, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So one question is, I tend to find, what you would take in the desert might be different than what you would take in the Arctic, or, can you mention like, for your area there in the in the Hudson Valley or the Adirondacks, what do you have that's kind of unique that you wouldn't have in other parts of the country?
Oh, great question. Let me think, because that's a good question. That's unique for the area. I would say, as stupid as this sound, I have bug nets for my head because I don't like applying chemical DEET to my forehead and stuff like that. Because in the summer and warmer months, man, the flies and mosquitoes and the no-see-ums, those little guys that get you, man, they always manage to get me even with the bug net on, but it's reduced drastically. So I'll carry that. I will carry, compared to desert, I'll carry less water, obviously.
But the bug
But
net is the big thing that's makes a difference for you.
yeah, in terms of prolonged duration out in the trail, like, a lot of guys, they'll be like, oh, I'm going to do this in survival and that. And I'm like, okay, well, have you been exposed to ticks, fire ants, even, copperheads, rattlesnakes, things like that? Just the normal mundane stuff that nobody would think about in a critical situation. And yeah, it doesn't apply all the time, but having peace of mind and comfort items can go a long way. When you're out in the trail, your feet are wet and your socks are wet. You start thinking, man, this is a whole lot of suck out here. But yeah, bug net, and I'd say always extra pairs of socks. That's one thing that you can do multiple use items with. You can filter with a sock. You can use it in a Ziploc bag or a plastic bag for a pillow or some kind of comfort device. Just extra pairs of socks, because man, when you get blisters on your feet, it sucks. It's a major downer when you're out you have to hike continually with heavy gear on your back. So extra socks.
And that's
Yeah.
pad to sit on while you're operating.
Yeah, the pad that let me bring this around here. Yeah, this is a thermarest seat. This one, they make it in yellow and gray. This is I guess dark flat earth and gray. Very, very nice. The upgraded versions, they add a little bungee cord thing to keep it nice and together, but the older models don't have that. Yes, this is definitely something I'd recommend that's unique. I mean, you could use it in the desert, use it in the Arctic, obviously, too, but I guess for this area, there's so much rocks and stuff. This is kind of like the easy way of sitting down. It's not the most comfortable way, but it prevents the heat transfer. And let me tell you, my butt, I can't do hard surfaces for a long time. So there you go, right?
Thank you. Yeah, sometimes it's something like that that makes all the difference.
Yeah, it's the little stuff that I've noticed that can make the biggest difference. Like, if you don't have that, like your mental, mental outlook on the rest of the day could be like dampened, and that'll cascade into other things. And the less stuff you have to worry about or feel bad about, the better. The more focused you can be at accomplishing your task at hand, I feel.
Thank you.
I don't think there's anything else I could think of offhand. That's a really good question. I will say, with caveat, depending on what you're doing, certain kind of knives, cutting tools, because you can make tools out in the field. I'm still learning how to do what they call bush crafting, which is like, this is a brand new knife. I haven't used this one yet, luckily, but you have a full tang knife. Let me grab one of these kids here. I carry a smaller full tang knife, cheaper one. So if it breaks, gets lost, no big deal. And having a proper multi-tool when you're out there is a huge benefit. So being able to troubleshoot stuff and fix stuff on the fly, because I've had stuff break out there on the field and not have the right tool to fix it, is kind of a bummer. The bad thing is you got all this extra weight you may not need, but you wish you had if you did need it. So finding that kind of balance, that's why I came out with a lighter kit. This one has the micro tools in there, so it's lighter, smaller, much better on my back and knees. So again, it's a lot of trial and error. What works for you, you play around. I would say definitely assess the time, the area, your duration, and your, I guess, objective and goals, and then plan accordingly for that. It's just, and then have at least, in my opinion, 3 or 4 different methods of backups, or, primary, tertiary, or primary, secondary, tertiary, and then the last resort kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Just a good idea to have backups, because I've had a lot of stuff fail on me.
1 is none and 2 is 1.
Yeah, essentially. It's not always nice on the weight side, but if I was doing a long duration hike, right, I wouldn't use any of this stuff. I'd get like a Tyvek $600 hiking backpack unit for that specific purpose, because it's lightweight. I'm not dying on the trail. I can just carry my water and food in there, and all this electronical stuff I'd probably find an empty bag, loose bag or something, put it in and just go like that, because this is extremely lightweight compared to canvas. And I'd be strictly sticking on trails, as opposed to with this stuff, I can go through the bush and not have to worry about it as much. So, you know,
Yeah, one of
Yeah.
the things I've kind of, like you mentioned, Dyneema, is some of these channels, you watch these YouTube guys and they get free gear for a review. It's like, oh, here's this greatest $1,500 tent, and it's one of my 57 tents. But like for a knife, I have a $15 Mora knife. I don't think you could beat it at 4 times the price, right?
more
don't have to
knives
go
are a
get
good
a-
brand.
Yeah, you don't have to get $1,000 knife. And that's
No.
kind of when you're starting off, it can get really confusing. The other thing I found, like I could go to Goodwill and get a stainless steel single wall water container, right? Or an Nalgene bottle for like $2. I don't have to pay $75 for a titanium water bottle.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Actually, Walmart is one of the first places I recommend people who are starting out with go to, because even I go to Walmart. I use Walmart stuff, and it's much more cost effective. I mean, I'm having, for me, it's sometimes it's a moral question whether I want to support, Chinese products versus, American made. And not everybody can, you might not have the funds. So you just do the best you can. And
Sure.
yeah, it's, I'm one of those guys. So I have like all this fancy, expensive crap that I'm showing you on the camera, but you don't need half this stuff. All you need to do is like learn how to make tools with stones out in the woods and sticks. And you can probably do, a good portion of what you normally would. This is all convenience, really, is the way I feel. And if you learn the skills, the skills, doesn't matter what you have, you know what you're doing, you know. So you're absolutely right. You don't need these $1,500 things to affect a change or accomplish your goals necessarily. Absolutely right. I agree with you 100%.
I do find it very regional. Like here where I am in the mountain, western mountains of Maine, you drive down any highway, there is so much wood. When the power line crews come along and trim the trees, they buck the wood and just stack it by the side of the road. I mean, there's so much blow down, a twig stove, you would never run out of twigs. Or in the desert, you would never find wood. So I think a lot of it just is regional, and, it's going to vary. So, this one size fits all doesn't.
Yeah, it's very dependent on where you are, what you're doing, duration. Little history on me. I used to work at Eastern Mountain Sports, and I was what you would call an outfitter, or a guy you go to be like, okay, I'm going on a trip. What do I need? And first thing I ask you is like, okay, what are you willing to spend, first of all? And second of all, if you're going to shop here, there's probably better deals outside of the store. I tell them buy it online.
Yeah.
I'd say, hey, look at the thrift shops, look at this, that, and then go from there. But people are like, yeah, well, I want this. I'm like, okay, you can get this, but it sucks for this reason, and it's good for this reason. So I try to be like that on my channel. I'm not always like that. I do get stuff, people send me stuff to review. If I don't like it, I usually don't review it, because it's just like, I'm not going to promote someone's stuff. I feel like that's kind of not good. And if there's stuff there, I'll full out blast it if I have to. I'll say, hey, you recommend these changes for this thing, and I think it's good. But I mainly do like lights and stuff. I'm a big flashaholic kind of guy too, in addition to ham radio stuff. So got a lot of hobbies.
There's a lot to be said for the Walmart $1 little lamp that clips onto the visor of your ball cap.
Hey, it's a tool, tool.
I give them to friends. I give them away to friends, it's like, here, hey, put one of these in your pocket. You may need it tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's like like for our hobby, the bow things, people like to knock them. I don't have any personal problems with them. Just, it's a tool. You use it for a purpose, and that's it. And that being said, I'll recommend something else once you're used to it. I say, hey, maybe get one of these for your purposes, or one of those, a Elenco or ICOM or Kenwood or whatever. It's just getting the skill, using it is the important thing, I think.
Not to mention, if you lose a bow fang, you didn't lose a month's pay.
Exactly. That's you lose one of these other radios, you're like, oh man, it's hard to find some of these radios nowadays too. I've noticed on eBay, absorbent prices that people want, but Hey, I got some of these radios at a time where people were like, oh, $100, 150. And I thought that was expensive at the time, but
Yeah, hey
Yeah.
guys, we're coming up on almost 8:30 here. Just want to be mindful of everyone's time.
Thank you.
So I know we already had a few people drop off. Does anybody else have any questions or comments or whatnot? Otherwise, we can probably wrap up. All right, very good. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll post the video here next day or two. And thanks a lot, John, for presenting to us. It was excellent.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My pleasure. And thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.